Hi and welcome back to the New Zealand Property Podcast and Video Series, sponsored of course by Property Ventures Real Estate, and we're very pleased to have a conversation a little bit different than usual, and we'll explain why in a minute. And Shane Rhode from Lateral Lawyers.
That's right.
That's right. Welcome aboard.
Thank you, mate.
Good stuff. Now, so today we're going to talk a wee bit about what Shane does on his day-to-day job, and also where it's a wee bit different, a bit of a life story, I guess, where you've gone from a top sports person in the country to maybe some things that didn't go quite well in your life, and is that understated?
Things that could have gone better. Yeah. And top sports person's a bit of a stretch as well. I was a sports person.
Yeah, well, there we go. We've that's a stretch. The other one's an understatement.
So the truth is usually somewhere in between. That's what they say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then we're coming back, and there you run a small team of doing lawyer stuff, commercial lawyers, which we'll talk about shortly. And so all good. So again, welcome along. And just to start off, can you tell us a bit about what Lateral Lawyers does do, what you do now?
Yeah, so I worked in a very good law firm for 4 years as a junior, and then I really more because I didn't like working in a law firm and working in a big team. I went out on my own and founded Lateral Lawyers in 2012. Beginning of 2012, and it's certainly been a journey. I started at mum and dad's garage.
That's how every business starts, isn't it? Every successful business starts in a garage.
A lot of the good ones do, and using my own clients' money to fund us. We had no funding or anything like that, and to this day we share a premises with the barrister Chris Patterson, who's a very good friend of mine, and who's been very helpful to me during the various ups and downs. Great guy, and so we're in with Chris Patterson Barrister Limited on 26 Hobson Street, Hobson Towers, and I've got a couple of staff, a couple of lawyers, keep it real lean and mean, and we try and tout for primarily just commercial work, a little bit of commercial property, and
So what sort of things are commercial property you're sort of helping them with?
We don't do a lot of commercial property work. We do a little bit. I mean,
all commercial.
The firm I was in, we did quite a lot of commercial property, so I definitely have some skills there. In terms of we look at all the different limbs and documentation for commercial property, but we focus more on the business side, the commercial side of law. Yep. It's a much more of a passion area of mine, and I've found it's and you'll know this yourself, Mark. You need to be passionate about stuff if you're going to go the extra mile and make that last phone call or email,
100%,
or deal with the various stresses we have. You need to be passionate about stuff. So that's where I've directed my firm into more commercial law.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's good. So you help obviously clients and make them aware of risks. That's what you lawyers do. Risk, all about the risks associated with asset purchases. So what should commercial buyers look out for? And I guess even now, has it changed since the COVID things happened?
We don't just look out for risk. So a better way of probably, or the way I would put it, is we like to establish the viability of an opportunity. And that of course includes risks.
Yep.
But a lot of commercial clients we pick up because we're told they're sick to death of their lawyer telling them that they can't do anything and there's risks with everything. Well, of course there's risk. If there's no risk, it's not reality. Yep. So it's about informing the clients of the risk so they can make informed decisions and understand the full scope or risk profile in their commercial property, business, etc. So we're the eyes and ears to actually point that out. But we're certainly not into over lawyering and taking an emotive lawyer hat off stance where we go in and say you can't do this for this and this reason. The conversation would be much more phrased along the lines of, here are the risks, this is what they mean, this could be the real life consequences for you. If you're prepared to understand and accept those, that's part of the commercial bargain that you're striking, and you're on your own from there because we've set it out very clearly to you. And that's I find a much more healthy way to look at a project than just here's a list of all the things you shouldn't do. For example, quite often a client will say to me, can you look into this aspect of a transaction, and we'll write to them and they'll say, okay, I'm going ahead anyway, and my advice to them will be, okay, so you just wanted to feel out, you had some lay person's understanding of the risk. Now that I've fleshed it out for you, you haven't changed your mind, you want to do it anyway, but you wanted to know there wasn't any risk and any nook and cranny that you didn't understand, or a latent risk that wasn't apparent before we got involved.
Yeah. It's music to my ears because, as a few listeners know, over the past I've got pretty frustrated with some residential, we'll say, lawyers who always they do is to say the risk only, but and especially if it's a newer investor or a buyer, and they don't actually understand what that investor's trying to do, and they get turned off some outstanding deals that could have actually already kick-started their residential buying sort of thing.
Yes. So
it's music to hear, and I guess if you're using having commercial clients coming to you with whatever the business may be they're looking at, I think it's residential buyers, but a newer commercial person probably has a bit more experience than a newer residential person.
Yes.
I guess so. I guess they understand it, and you've already got a relationship a lot of the time with your clients, I suppose, which is hugely important. I think having that relationship.
We actually had one. Just to give you a quick example, we had one just before lockdown where a long-standing friend of mine and client hasn't been a client for a long time, but he's buying his first property.
Yep.
And there were no restrictive covenants on the title cross lease.
Yep.
And we set out all our advice, explained how much it could cost to rectify it, but worse than that if you can't get the consent of the neighbour in terms of rectifying the title, that can be like the old how long's a piece of string problem.
Yep.
He understood all that, but for him to get into the market at this time at a price he felt was good for him and his partner in their life to actually buy this property was more important, and he took our advice into consideration and decided, notwithstanding that, he was going to go ahead. It was a better thing to do. Now, taking my lawyer hat off, it was probably the best thing for him to do, so long as he was aware of the how long was that piece of string in terms of what could go wrong. And so I was completely comfortable with that, whereas I've seen some lawyers go as far as, and I hate this saying from when you're dealing with someone, my lawyer won't let me. Well, it's not your lawyer's decision. It's your
100%.
decision. And sometimes they just try and hide behind their lawyer, but often, someone getting so over the top and emotive about it, just because, to be honest, a lot of the time the lawyer doesn't want it on their books that this person's done something which could come back to haunt them. Yeah. It's not our job.
Yeah, and I guess if you strongly disagree with the decision someone's making, and they do, we had one with someone in our office here last week who we saw a letter from their solicitor about a year earlier, the lawyer saying that she actually wrote that she recommended that he didn't go ahead with this transaction, and because it's actually the reason she was actually warning him away happened, and it's cost him the best part of $500,000. So at least in that case there, she's covered herself. But I mean, that's an unusual situation, but the important thing is that you understand the clients, and that doesn't happen a lot on the residential, which I see as understanding what they're trying to achieve is hugely important. The risks are important, but what they're trying to achieve is also important.
Yep.
And too many people, I think, just as you said, they all blame their solicitor or whatever it might be, but they might they just take it gospel what they say, and they haven't actually they've only discussed that much, the risk of not the advantages of doing a particular job.
Yeah, well, just to have a bit more of a nuanced or a broader understanding of, like you said, the benefits and the risks, and to put the risks into the context of what the upside is and look at it in a more balanced way.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, people love real stories. You've got an example of a client that's either good or bad, or both. Who you've helped?
It's bloody colourful. I tell you what. So I've got a client and a good mate of mine who had a business. He sold the business through another friend of ours, a business broker. Then he went into a franchise of a large household name franchise business. Because we're gagged in terms of confidentiality restrictions under a settlement agreement that got signed, I can't talk about the exact deal that got struck, but suffice to say, for our purposes, that he was then rescued from this business from another household franchise brand, and for love nor money, and despite his incredible work ethic and great attributes as an entrepreneur, could not get this business to work. And this household brand, it was actually, I can name that, was Foodstuffs, were fantastic to him in terms of assisting him in a situation where they provided him an exit in a way that allowed him to keep the shirt on his back. And I was super impressed. You know, a lot of people give big business a hard time, but they were very good, very ethical, and they recognised this guy as a good guy. And he's now in a small business in Ponsonby that the broker and I are now shareholders of.
Oh, okay.
He's going great. He learned his lesson. That was, and I told him this at the time, he was looking at this other business.
Yeah.
Stay in your own backyard. Understand that all the intellectual, social, entrepreneurial capital you'll put into learning a business area. Learn that was hard earned, and that not just anyone can replicate that. And the flip side of that coin is you get out of your backyard into an area where you don't have comfort. Yeah. You are fully exposed to the crosswinds, so to speak, of the broader macroeconomic situation. And you really are on a hiding to nothing if you don't have everything go your way, which he didn't. So that was how would I put it, cathartic, but also it was a great learning exercise for everyone involved in that transaction. And it really helped me to become a better lawyer, to understand, because he was a mate, understand from a very real perspective of what can go wrong and what did go wrong, and why we sometimes advise the way we do.
And that's a great bit of advice, and there'll be a lot of people here watching and listening to this, the same, well, similar situation with the properties. Obviously such a diverse thing. You can do so many parts of property, and some people they rush into doing something that they're not familiar with, or you say it's not their bread and butter of what they understand and know, and have been, get hurt. And it's a big ticket item. You can get hurt pretty badly, whether it's a business or a property.
Sure can.
I guess. So in that case there, I can't say too much, but the first business he went into was something he wasn't quite familiar with, or different from what he was doing, I guess.
Yeah, it was just a bigger scale, and it didn't. He was more of a conduit to a much bigger picture in terms of how the business was run.
Yeah.
And my experience in life has been that usually people find themselves either whether you're employed for a long time or in a certain size of business or industry. Usually, what's happened, but there are outliers, but usually that person has decided that particular discomfort, or that particular the flavour of pain, if you want to call it that you put up with, is kind of what you've, without really consciously understanding it, have worked your way into as how you're going to spend your time to in exchange for money, earning a living. And so often when people change, I have a mate who was a lawyer, a good lawyer, went out as an agent, a business broker, and then that didn't work out for him. And that doesn't say anything necessarily of his skills, but the grass is always greener. Lawyers often tell these bloody agents. Part of that is because of the skills that you need to, as you will attest to, and that's a story for another podcast, maybe when you come back on our Facebook Live. But those skills are hard earned and honed, and the whole art of good selling is it looks easy, it's effortless, because you can't see it, but that doesn't mean it's easy. So you can very easily be forgiven for thinking that you could get into something else and that everything's going to be better for you, because it usually won't. I'm a big
advocate of that. And things always look better on the other side, and quite often they're not. And it looks like agents are earning all this money, and it looks good, 20,000 here or whatever. It's not what it might appear underneath it all. 100%.
I think the good people in everything will do very, very well. And then people sort of in the middle tier will do okay, and then the poorer performers struggle in everything. Unfortunately, it's the way it is.
That's all good. So the other part of the first time we spoke, you talked about the other thing you help some of your clients with, things like shareholders agreements, which obviously goes on to what you said before. You help with business, commercial business sort of thing, and also one thing that's probably got a bit newer of lately, and it was on a bit over the press 6 months ago, was I guess houses are so damn expensive now around New Zealand, is you're helping some people buy houses in a together sort of thing from maybe two different families or that situation. So why is that important, and what are any suggestions you give to anyone who's considering that?
Well, Augusta's been in the news lately in terms of the failed development up in Albany and underwriting issue, and cap raising and all that, and they're big business obviously, and then there's smaller providers, Oyster and Erskine Owen and all these sort of companies that get into syndication, but that concept also can work for anyone buying into a syndicated offering. Is really, once you take away all the fancy terms and glamour and gloss, is just really people pooling their assets together because they can't afford to buy that asset on their own, in their own account. So on a much smaller scale, people are coming together, and so clients of ours, and buying properties, even resi properties, between them. Now, if you get into that situation, you need to think long and hard, first of all, of who you want to be in bed with, so to speak, because it's like being in a marriage, in terms of particularly some of the more nefarious or downside aspects of being in that relationship. But secondly, just having a document in place that says, who's responsible for maintenance, who's to do what, who's responsible for finding tenants if there's no management company because you're trying to keep your costs down, who's actually turning up on Saturday morning and showing people through. We see spats over absolutely everything, and something emotive like that can turn into a real time waster for people. So if you've got not only the process of sitting down and having that property sharing agreement, clearly articulating who is to do what, but that actual process of going through that can really clear the air and set in motion a really good relationship, because everyone can go, oh, remember when we sat down that day in Shane's office and we all agreed you would do this, or the reason why you agreed you would do this is because you're putting in slightly less than us, therefore your contribution was discounted for that, etc., etc. And there's all sorts of other considerations. What will happen, obviously, probably most importantly, is under what circumstances can, if at all, anyone of that property syndicate, that small property syndicate, can be forced to sell. They're not paying their mortgage, etc. And there's all sorts of intricacies, particularly concerning around the fact that the bank will have cross-collateralized security over, obviously, all of the persons behind the entity, whether they're individuals or as beneficiaries of a trust or shareholders of a company. So bearing in mind that the bank will have recourse to everyone equally, so if there's 4 people and 3 of them do a runner to Tenerife because they won lotto, that poor person, even though in their contract their property share agreement is liable for a fifth or a quarter, or whatever I said, how many people in my example, unfortunately when BNZ knocks on the door and says you owe us 800 grand, being the whole mortgage debt, your contract between the 4 or 5 of you and the bank, unfortunately you're going to be liable for all of that. So it's about, first of all, understanding exactly what risk you have in terms of exposure, and a good lawyer will set all that out, and then as much as possible protecting the parties vis-a-vis each other. And that's essentially a shareholders agreement, but for property investors owning an asset together, specific to the use of that enjoyment and responsibilities and obligations around that asset.
And I guess there's so many, as I said, there's so many variables. You could be easy to go, here's a stock standard agreement, but there's so many variables from 2 people doing totally even work, even money in there. Against, have you seen any people actually buying to live in? I know actually one lady, she couldn't afford to get a place by herself, so she's got a friend that bought half, I don't know how much of the property sort of thing, and they said they've got a contract where they've done that for one of their own properties sort of thing. So you seen any of that at the stage?
I usually try and dissuade people from doing that sort of arrangement if it's going to be the family home for one of them.
It's a wee bit hard, isn't it? I guess it's investment for one, a family home for the other.
Because you're kind of, at least it's a family member, and
change all the time.
They have a vested interest in that person's happiness. You can get the situation. I always try and tell people, if they're going to do this arrangement, they want to be unemotive and almost sort of ice cool and commercial about it, in terms of the fact that it's an asset. As soon as someone wants to live in it,
that's right.
You've really sort of apples and oranges.
That's one thing I have had. I've done numerous joint ventures before with renovating and trading property, and one of the things which you always put in was one of the last things where, what if one of the parties wanted to hold on to the property, because as you said, you're covering every aspect that might happen, I guess. So and it's important to cover that, and so you got every outs covered, and that's easy to miss for a layman like me, sort of thing. And
if
one person
wants
like yourself
to hold on to it, the situation can be analogous to, or the similar characteristics to, where an estate where someone dies and then the children or beneficiaries under the will squabble over their entitlement to a property, and one wants to keep it to live in it and the others want to sell it to realise the value.
Yeah.
And that can be really nasty and protracted, and you don't want that.
No, and then you get a valuation. Who's getting the valuation? What's their agenda?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
And the trustees get brought into it, and then they become it becomes a hindrance for the professional people involved, and you can't, obviously with the estate issue, you can't avoid that entirely, because that is what it is. Hasn't come out. It's not a creature of no one actually decided, let's cause a big kerfuffle in terms of, because that's just what happens. But you really got to ask the question: do you unwittingly, and that's what a good lawyer should do, want to put yourselves in this position vis-a-vis each other contractually with a property where there is a chance that one person will want to keep hold of it for emotional reasons? Then that brings a whole different colour to their thinking in terms of how they're going to
100%.
act when the time comes to potentially flip the property.
And if you're sitting there and go, I trust my mate next to me and I want to go into partnership with him, I don't need any of this. Believe me, I've I've been involved in and seen it many times where it just pays to do it, because everything's always good while it's going well, but when it doesn't go well, that's when the
It's interesting, as a younger lawyer, I used to buy into that, because you think these guys have got this sussed, and you should have a shareholders agreement. We don't really want to spend the money. Okay, and then you see as you get a bit battle hardened over time, when they come back to you 8 months later and go, shit, I wish I'd got that. So you start to push it a bit more. I have my favourite saying in that context is, it's all good, because they'll say, no, it's all good. You say, it's all good until it's not. Then it really isn't all good.
And it's not there at all. That's good. Cool. Right. You want to cover any more about your lawyer stuff? Are you happy with that?
No,
good.
It's not terribly interesting.
Okay. So Shane's a bit of a story, we'll say, about himself that might interest a few of you. Some of you might even heard a bit of it. We'll see. But not all of it's good, but not all of it's good in anyone's life, I guess. if you go back, the great thing I like about it, you're not ashamed to talk about it, and I guess that's because you've grown and become and continue to be a better person, I suppose. And that's what I like doing myself. If you can help other people who listen to your story and motivate other people, you're making them a better person and the world a better place. That's in my opinion. Fair comment for what you think before we start.
Oh yeah, you just got to try, and you got to try and do your best. And I frequently get it wrong, and I'm having to apologise, or I know I haven't probably acted in the best, in the most flattering light, but sometimes emotions get in the way of things. But the first thing is to have some self-awareness about how you're acting and what you're doing and what your motives are. Can be really beneficial in terms of, because at least then that if you can come from that place a lot of the time, it's going to buy you some maybe not brownie points is the wrong word, but it's definitely going to give you some slack in terms of how you interact with your fellow humans, because we all get it wrong often.
Yeah, absolutely. Human nature, we can't help but do that, but it's good when you're in a reasonably good space where you can, as I said, you're considering the other person, what they're feeling and stuff as well, when what your actions are, how your actions are going to affect someone.
For sure.
And that's important. The other thing for me I've gone is you can't stay the same ever. You're either going better or worse.
100%.
And that's just the way life is. Life changes. As we all considered, 30 years ago, that $20,000 was a good salary. I'm happy with that. I'm happy with that the rest of my life. Well, guess what? You haven't stayed the same. You've gone backwards, sort of thing.
That's a good point.
And that sort of that I haven't. We've both had good and bad things on in our life, and but this is your story today, so you want to tell us a bit about it?
I'm intrigued by yours, but
I'll save that for your one.
Yeah, so I grew up in privilege. Grew up in the middle of Mount Eden. Went to Auckland Grammar School. I was a pretty accomplished track and field runner. I wasn't amazing, but I was good enough to run nationally and make national finals, and did a lot of writing for sports magazines. Through law school, and was pretty capable academically. I wasn't the top notch like the ducks at law school, but I was pretty capable. I got mostly A's, particularly my last few years of my degree, and then I worked in a good law firm and was good at my job. I wasn't necessarily always I don't think a good fit in that place because for my personality. But what happened was I got frustrated with that environment and I started my own business. And as you would have seen countless times, quite often when someone starts their own business but they don't have the maturity yet to deal with the real stress of what that brings, particularly for something like law, which you have all the professional risk and risk of getting it right on top of the risk of actually running your own business. And that's not a, oh, feel sorry for me type of thing. That's just a reality of when you're in the professions and you're quite young and you know you're out of your depth, not only with the management of client risk, but also your own business. I started to drink a lot. And through my 20s, I was always known, I would always have a big night every now and then, but because of sport and at law school, which are both difficult, challenging, enjoyable pastimes, I was able to probably duck too much of the whole sort of effects of alcohol or alcoholism, which runs in my family. I was able to mitigate that mostly in my 20s, but early 30s, own my own business, and then I started to make a little bit of money, not a lot. I thought it was a lot at the time, but with freedom and money came poor choices. With poor choices came more stress, and then there was this horrible merry-go-round of I'm stressed, oh, poor me, it's so hard doing what I do, I deserve this, the whole alcoholic sort of, because I'm a member of AA, so which I'm actually not, we're not supposed to talk about it because it's supposed to be about attraction rather than promotion, so I'll probably get messages telling me off for that, but anyway, it slipped out.
As long as you're not talking about other people, that's fine.
That's right, I'll never do that. So, which brought me full circle to, I was caught by the police speeding away from them in my Audi station wagon a few years back, and at the time I thought it was the worst thing to ever happen to me. I was so unlucky, poor me, the same old bullshit. But and with time is a wonderful, not only healer, but it's a great perspective changer. And in time I realised that I was bloody lucky because I was acting really irresponsibly and childishly and like a real addict. And when the curtain came down on that part of my life, I met John Banks, who to this day has been my best friend and mentor. He's been incredibly good, not only getting me sober, but also encouraging me professionally, developing my self-confidence personally, and really believing in me when I felt no one else did. And at that time, and there was no reason to, I'd really lost the plot. And so that was 2015, so coming up 5 years now, which I've been sober, and being able to, the biggest joy of it has been not, like the business has grown and it's really developed, and it's going absolutely gangbusters like now, better than ever. We've got great commercial clients and there's just more and more coming out of the wash every day, but the biggest joy I've had is being able to sit with myself, being able to enjoy my success but maintain humility and not feel like showing off or buying fancy stuff, just being able to actually revel in the fact that I'm not acting in a way which I know there's trouble around the corner, but still being able to channel in that desire for stimulus and challenge into constructive rather than destructive avenues. Because running the business, if you do it properly, as you know, is really, really hard. If you want to make some money and you want to provide salaries for people and teach and train young people, the challenge of doing that done properly is exhausting, and it's ample food for stimulus, if that makes sense.
100%. And it's just a way of doing it. It's putting that stimulus into productive things rather than it's easy to do. You see, when you're younger, you have a bit of success and money and booze and what have you, and it all. It can. I guess you're younger, you don't know how. You haven't had, I guess, life experiences. I mean, I'm not talking life experiences, but when you're younger, you don't have those life experiences. You don't know how to. Yes, it's how to cope with it. You don't know how to cope with it, I guess. And that's the big thing, I suppose, that you've grown from those days when sweet life, new business, and good athlete and what have you, and then your own business and what have you, and then it's easy to and it is hard. It is a hard thing to do, and it's hard to get that balance right, I guess, through life at any stage, I suppose.
Yeah, like a lot of the time, people, I see them doing it all the time now. I've been fortunate enough to use my profile doing what I do to help a lot of people, and it's always anonymously unless they're comfortable with me talking about it, and I have no need to or no desire to, unless the situation presented where it was actually going to be helpful to someone else. But the biggest thing I see is that addiction doesn't discriminate between rich or poor or anything else, any other demographic.
Yeah.
And once someone has gone down the rabbit warren of addiction in terms of wanting at all costs to numb themselves or lose themselves from the reality of their present moment, you can't speak logically or rationally or appeal to that person's rational brain, because it's not even about being drunk or high and not being able to get through, because even when they're lucid and sober, you can't get through to them because something had gone so wrong, like it did for me, where you can't actually appeal to that part of them because that part of them for that period has been lost. You just have to hope that they get shaken to the core enough by some sort of internal or external event that actually makes them almost just have this, we call it rock bottom moment, where and that was for me was 2015 with all the stuff I just described earlier going on, and it's just it's quixotic, so it's without rhyme or reason. You can look at someone and go, with all that going on, I can't believe he or she is still drinking or doing drugs, because it's crazy. God, doesn't he or she realise that, man, it's just gone too far? And you know, and I was like that too. And you can't appeal. So now I never have any judgment of people in those situations, because I'd be hypocritical. I get frustrated sometimes if I'm trying to help people. I think, God, they're worse than I was. My first reaction would be, and I you know, once it got to me, but it's your own
personal level of how far they can.
It's your own personal nadir. It's your own personal version of hell on earth. And they say that a good one is no tree can get to heaven until its roots are planted firmly in hell.
Yeah.
And that's definitely been true for me, and I don't know if I'm in heaven yet, certainly not in any biblical sense, but I certainly know that if I hadn't have been through the things I had been through, and I put myself through them, but if I hadn't have been through those struggles and challenges, then I wouldn't have had the gratitude and the ease with which I go about things today. Things still go wrong all the time, but I no longer get that real kind of awful gut churning sensation when something's gone wrong, or if I hear someone is talking shit about me or any of that stuff. It still doesn't, I still don't like it, but I can get over it in like 90 seconds now, whereas I used to spend a day sort of labouring over something that I wish didn't happen, that has happened, or someone's attitude towards me, which I think, based on how I see the world, is unfair. Just being able to let that shit go and be able to get on with my life and realise that on the whole I'm trying to do good things, and I'm aware of the consequences of my behaviour. It's a really nice place to get to, because I tried the other way of, first of all, numbing everything out. That didn't work. I tried the way then of overthinking, analysing, controlling everything to the point that if I could just get these things to work in concert right around me, I'd feel okay. Doesn't work either. You just got to let go of everything, call it God, call it spirituality, call it whatever the fuck you like. You've just got to somehow let go of all this stuff in your life and realise you can only keep your side of the street clean and control what's in front of you, and you'll be
makes
good.
Your life so much simpler, I think, when you can do that. It's a hard thing to do, I guess, but when you do,
talk about how to do, but if you don't try, you'll never get there. I was listening to the radio this morning, just driving to work, and actually a couple of DJs talking about mental health, and one of the things you said before about you appreciate now what you've got because you've seen some bad things. I was saying about, you've got to have bad days. Sometimes you just have a bad day, and there's no reason why, you just do, sort of thing. But it makes the good days all the better, I suppose. Absolutely.
But and then so about whether what DJs are talking about, whether they've ever thought of taking their own life or anything.
Sure.
And
I think it's great when the DJs and people in those positions where they have a following, irrespective of who they are, and sometimes, and I've been guilty of this in the past as well, I think, why is this person giving us so much of their opinion? But I think it's fabulous, because then by those people actually being not shy to talk about those things, it normalises it. It makes people listening or watching realise they're not alone in those thoughts, and it makes people realise that everyone has to go through it.
Yeah, so that was totally agree with that, and it was great to hear. I love hearing people talk about it, and I don't know who they were because I channel surf all the time. But they were talking about that, and it's a lot of people think it's a sign of weakness when someone's, it's an easy cop out, and yeah, on the outside it is. It's an easy cop out when people are looking at, I think, maybe thinking of leading your own life for whatever reason is it's the easy way out as such. But when that person's involved in it, anywhere from whatever their level of what they can take and what they've been through, I guess, the last thing they're thinking about is obviously is that. And if you see if you get to a rock bottom and you haven't thought of or haven't lost your life sort of thing, and you improve yourself, I think that's one of the best things that ever happen, I suppose, for that point, because it is a total waste of life when someone does do that. And because I've just I've enjoyed 50 years of I had ups and downs with 50 years of life sort of thing, and it'd be a hell of a shame if I'd knocked it off when I was 25 or 30 or 35 sort of thing. And it's the same for everyone, I think, as they get older and more and grow through things. So
the other thing that is just and I haven't talked about this at length, but it's definitely a sentiment I believe, hence why I'm going to share it with you, is there's sometimes overly judgmental sentiment expressed by people, both privately but also in the press, about how could this person take their life, they had this going for them or that, and it was so difficult for so many people, and this person was a person of privilege or whatever. But I think that's a misinformed or unenlightened way of looking at it, because if people feel like that, it doesn't matter what they have going for them, it doesn't matter what objectively others can see in them, it's how they feel about themselves. And that person's experience on earth, the same way that I can't change when the sun rises and sets, is that all your experiences that you've had in your life to have you sitting here today are going to colour how you act today. So it's I think it's a misconceived or a simplified way of looking at mental health to say, well, that was the wrong thing to do. I'm not saying it's a good thing, it's a terrible thing. At the same time, I think that you don't want to be advocating because of that it's okay. It's a very nuanced argument. That's not what I'm saying. It's not okay, but you have to have empathy and understanding around people that do make that decision, because it's just not something that can be put into, well, you have X, so you should be okay.
And something you'll probably relate to is it's nice when you come out the other side sort of thing, and you're saying you can enjoy life at the moment. I think one of the reasons you sort of alluded to it before is when you're in the midst of it, you're very secretive, and there's nothing worse than being secretive. And I think that's where people, like you said, with people that do commit suicide or what have you, they're very probably maybe ashamed of things they've done, and they're very secretive and they don't want other people to know about it. And that's probably one of the instigators of what I've seen sort of thing of why people might think about doing that. And I guess that sounds like the easy way out, doing it rather than tell everyone. Everyone will find it anyway. Probably one day they might not, but it's but that's when you move on, you get over the secretive thing. That's just.
I was talking about actually one of our employees today who's publicly announced some of his issues and as well, and he said that the monkey off his back was palpable when he finally decided he was going to tell people he was addicted, in his case drugs. It was just, he said it was just like this shedding of his skin. And I was lucky, I didn't think so at the time when the Herald and stuff ran the articles about me burning the cops off. I didn't think I was lucky at all. I was very ashamed. I lost a lot of confidence. I was worried. I'd meet clients on very sort of awkwardly, have you seen my newspaper story, thinking they're not going to use me as a lawyer, and maybe some didn't, but today I just don't care. And the reason I don't care is because I don't go around judging other people. Humans, we're actually quite primitive when it comes down to it. It really comes down to either what can this person do for me, or how does this person make me feel? And it really doesn't go beyond that. And ultimately, that's how we think. For better or worse, I'm not saying it's necessarily good to have a bit more empathy than that, but that's generally how people think. So it's about getting over yourself and realising that you, personally, none of us really matter too much in the greater scheme of things. Beyond ourselves and our own family. And it's an interesting, I feel sorry for some of the people that have had issues and are trying to keep, I was just saying to my mate this morning, I feel a bit sorry for people that have had these issues, and it seems like a lot of the energy that could be going into addressing the real causes and the real problems and trying to then springboard forward rather than looking in the rearview mirror, that goes into trying to keep it quiet, realizing that there's a good one that people say in the fellowship, and that is, we didn't give a shit when people saw us dancing on tables at 3 o'clock in the morning off our face. All of a sudden now we're trying to be decent, law-abiding people and stay off the crack. And we're worried about keeping it quiet. Seems an interesting paradox.
It is. It's tremendously. Very good. Hey, this has been great we chat.
Yeah, good fun. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, anything else you want to sort of add as we finish up, sort of thing?
To be honest, I can't think of anything else. It's been I love doing stuff like this. If anyone out there thinks they've got a small business, or even if you don't have a business, you've got a passion or a hobby, get in front of the camera. I shied away from it and kind of poo-hooed it for years and years for my business. But the awareness and the people, like old friends and clients, calling up and saying, hey, I saw you on this, getting over yourself and realizing that you just got to do it not for any external reasons or validation, but because you genuinely enjoy doing it, and it might help someone, it might help you, it might help your staff, it might bring some more work in, and that help everyone in that way. But just it's really enjoyable, and I love getting to meet people like you, Mark, and on the deal that we did together, and then you suggested to come on here. We talked about podcasts, and it's a cool way to live, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to come on.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for that. We touch on your own podcast you run yourself. You've just started. Just mention.
So we do just on the Lateral Lawyers Facebook page. We do Facebook Live usually every Friday morning. Tomorrow's one. We're doing one on Wednesday for the next few weeks. But I just usually informally am chatting to someone and say, you should come on and have a bit of a chat. Sometimes it's about law, sometimes it's about, we had Nick Willis, a good friend of mine, an Olympic runner, and David Neathie, who's Israel Adesanya, and from time to time Lydia Coe's mental strength coach. We had them on a few weeks back, and talking about using some of the lessons from professional sport for entrepreneurs and transitioning from one to the other, because Nick's retiring at the moment. That was pretty cool, and we've had some really interesting entrepreneurial clients of ours on there, and you should, all the viewers out there should check it out if you want. Sometimes it's a little bit inane and just gossipy and rambling kind of rubbish, but again, that's fun as well.
People love that. I love that. We all do. Oh, that's great. That's just laterallawyers.co.nz.
Lateralllawyers.co.nz or Lateral Lawyers on the Facebook page.
On the Facebook page. Great.
Awesome.
Oh, Shane, hey, thanks very much for your time today. I hope listeners and watchers have got a lot out of today. I'm sure they have, and thanks for your brutal honesty and what have you. And it's isn't it great when you can actually do that and not worry about what you talk about these days? Isn't life good? Makes life a whole lot better.
Cheers, mate.
Good on you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, hey, thanks guys. We'll see you all again in 2 weeks' time, and we'll have another fantastic guest here like Shane. Thanks very much.